The village of Ponari, situated in the very heart of Transylvania, was a place of myth and legend. It was said that the wind that rustled through the Carpathian mountains carried with it the echoes of a forgotten past, a past that was dark and sinister, yet undeniably a part of the village's identity. For this was the home of Dracula. Every year on this night, the villagers celebrated the blood moon. It was a night when the veil between the living and the dead was at its thinnest, a night when the spirits of the ancestors were believed to walk the earth. But this year, the celebration turned into a nightmare. For the first time in 500 years, the great Lord Dracula had risen from his grave, and he was hungrier than ever before. As the full moon bathed the village in an eerie red glow, casting long, menacing shadows that danced on the cobblestone streets, the villagers were blissfully unaware of the horror that awaited them. Amongst them was a young woman named Alara, who had heard the stories about the blood moon and Dracula all her life. Tonight was supposed to be a night of celebration, a chance to connect with their heritage. So why was there a chill in the air, a premonition of doom that seemed to hang over the village like a shroud? The night began like any other celebration. The villagers gathered in the town square, their faces illuminated by the dancing flames of a bonfire. Children ran about, their laughter echoing in the twilight, while the elders sat in small groups, sharing tales of the old Transylvanian lords. The air was filled with the mouth-watering aroma of roasted meats and freshly baked bread, a feast laid out in honor of the ancestors. But as the moon climbed higher in the sky, an unsettling hush fell over the crowd. A sense of dread, palpable and icy, seemed to seep into their bones. Then, as if summoned by their fear, a raven landed on the edge of the fountain in the center of the square. Its obsidian eyes glistened in the firelight, and with a harsh croak, it took flight, disappearing into the inky blackness above. Suddenly, the tranquility of the night was shattered. A blood-curdling scream tore through the quiet, followed by another and then another. Panic surged through the crowd. What was out there in the darkness, stalking them, preying on their terror? In the ensuing chaos, Ilara found herself separated from the group. She stumbled through the maze of narrow streets, her heart pounding in her chest, the screams echoing in her ears. The jovial celebration had transformed into a scene of a nightmare made all the more terrifying by the lurking presence of Dracula. As she ran, she could feel his eyes on her, cold and predatory, weighing her as if deciding whether she was worth the hunt. Just when her lungs were threatening to burst and her legs felt like lead, she spotted a crumbling stone tower at the end of a street. It was the watchtower, a structure built during the Ottoman invasions to warn the villagers of approaching danger. Now it stood as a silent sentinel, a solitary figure in the sea of black. With a surge of adrenaline, Alora dashed towards it, hoping to find some semblance of safety within its crumbling walls. As she reached the tower, her fingers fumbled with the heavy wooden door, but it wouldn't budge. Just as despair threatened to engulf her, she saw a sliver of moonlight reflecting off a loose stone near the top of the door. With a grunt, she heaved the rock free, revealing a small, dark opening. It was just large enough for her to squeeze through. Inside the tower, the darkness was absolute, stifling, like a physical presence pressing against her skin. She stumbled around, her arms outstretched, trying to find a way out, but there wasn't one. The door behind her was sealed shut, leaving her trapped in the suffocating darkness. Then, as suddenly as it began, the commotion outside the tower ceased. Silence descended, heavy and oppressive, broken only by the frantic beating of her own heart. When she finally dared to turn around, her eyes struggled to pierce the gloom. But then she saw it, a faint glimmer in the distance. It was the moonlight filtering through a crack in the wall, revealing a small, dusty window high above the ground. With newfound determination, Alara began to climb, her fingers scraping against the rough stone, her toes finding purchase on the narrow ledge. As she ascended, the cool night air rushed over her, bringing with it the scent of pine and damp earth, a stark contrast to the metallic tang of blood that lingered in the tower. Finally, she reached the top and scrambled through the window, collapsing onto the soft grass below. Shaking and bruised, but alive, she looked back at the tower, its dark silhouette a menacing figure against the blood moon. Whatever had happened inside the village, she knew she had narrowly escaped. And as the first rays of dawn began to paint the sky, she made her way back to the village. Her steps lighter now that the sun was up, the darkness of the night seemed to lift, revealing the true horror of what had transpired. Homes were destroyed. Corpses lay strewn across the ground, and an unnatural silence hung in the air, broken only by the distant cawing of crows. The villagers who had survived the night stumbled out of their homes, their faces pale, their eyes filled with unspeakable horrors. They spoke in hushed voices, their words catching in their throats as they recounted the events of the night. Some spoke of seeing ghoulish figures moving through the village under the cloak of darkness, their eyes glowing an eerie red in the moonlight, their mouths filled with sharp fangs. Others spoke of hearing guttural screams, inhuman and terrifying, echoing from house to house. And then there were the disappearances. Families had been torn apart, their homes left empty and silent. No one knew what had happened to them, where they had gone, or who was responsible. At the center of it all was the feast, or what was left of it. The tables were overturned, the food scattered and trampled, and a thick layer of dust covered everything. It was as if the night before had been nothing but a figment of their imagination. Yet the carnage around them was a grim reminder of the reality of it all. The celebrations had turned into a massacre, a testament to the wrath of Dracula and his kind. In the days that followed, the villagers struggled to pick up the pieces, to rebuild their lives and their homes. But the shadow of Dracula loomed over them, a constant reminder of the evil that had been unleashed. They were forever changed, marked by the horrors they had witnessed and the loved ones they had lost. As for Alora, she became known as the survivor of Dracula's night of terror. She bore the scars, not just on her body, but in her soul as well. Yet she never forgot the lessons learned, the strength she had found within herself, and the importance of facing one's fears head-on. Her story became a legend, a tale whispered around campfires, a warning and a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity in the face of unimaginable horror. For even in the darkest of nights, when the veil between the living and the dead is at its thinnest and the monsters of our nightmares come to life, hope flickers like a candle flame in the wind, refusing to be extinguished. The blood moon hung heavy in the sky, a silent witness to the terror that unfolded below. In the hearts of the villagers, the memory of that night burned like a brand, a grim reminder of the darkness that can consume even the brightest of souls. And as the years passed, the tale of Dracula's night of terror became a haunting echo in the annals of history, a story that serves as a cautionary reminder that some legends are best left undisturbed,